Greetings, fellow quitters, and welcome back to the CMDQ podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Murray Casey.
And I'm John Pelfrey.
If you were with us in the previous episode, we closed out season 1 of CMDQ by looking back on some of the best personal advice we have gotten from our guests last year. Now we're talking business. We got to host so many professionals, many of whom were fellow freelancers, and pick their brains about how they built their careers and what they learned along the way.
Yeah, this also sets us up for our plans for next season. We've heard from our listeners, we've heard some feedback, and we're making a little bit of a change, a little pivot. Going forward, we're going to really zero in on the topics that are related to freelancing and small business ownership so that we can bring you more practical advice on how to start, sustain, and grow something that you're proud of in a world that's changing really fast. In the coming season, we'll be talking lead generation, industry trends, and business management. So be sure to reach out to us and let us know what's on your mind as a freelancer, as a small business owner, so that we can keep sparking those really interesting, great conversations for you. But before we do that, we're going to take a look back on some of the most poignant things that we learned in season 1, things that taught us how to grow our business, whether we're changing or setting up meaningful goals for the next year. And really start to understand how we know our value and how we can set a value as we go forward. And so, warm up, Mari. What was your biggest misconception about freelancing before you became a freelancer?
I think the biggest misconception, what I thought about freelancing before I started freelancing, you kind of feel like it's going to be really, really blissful in a lot of ways. Like, you're your own boss. It's all great. It's all roses and rainbows and unicorns. And the truth is that it's not. It's still a job, and you're going to have really great days and you're going to have really crappy days. And I think the sooner you realize that there are those cycles of like up and down and up and down, and you just learn to know when it's down, it's going to go back up, the easier it is to navigate that stuff. But I think when I first started, I was like, all right, I'm going to be my own boss. Like, it's going to be just like high-fiving myself all day. Woo! And it's just not true. It's still a job. You're still doing it. There's still really hard seasons and hard days. And I think when you go into it, understand that there's going to be some pluses and minuses, just like anything.
Yeah, totally. I had a friend tell me once before I started my first business, they said, the lows are lower and the highs are higher. And your job is to stay as steady in the middle as you possibly can because you feel it more. It's yours. And I think that's definitely true. My lows, especially the first 2 years in business, were really, really hard on me. That I felt like a failure over and over and over and over again. And then the highs were like really high, and I just like all the adrenaline, all the excitement, all the, and then over time it starts to settle in. So I totally agree. I think for me, the biggest misconception or the biggest thing was, I wrote a business plan, perfect business plan. Everything in it was right. It was 100% all going to happen exactly the way I wrote it out. And then just a couple of days later, you're humbled into, oh, actually, that's a nice idea. Those are nice plans, but those are guidelines. Those are not.
Yeah.
Cannot future. You cannot a certain amount of sales or growth or any of that sort of thing. So, I always go back to, I think it was John Lennon that said, "Life is what happens while you're busy making plans." Like, that's your business plan. Like, it's a guideline. It's a way for you to get started. It's a way for you to think about your audience. It's a way for you to sort of frame your plan. But you've got to be willing to adjust and change and move and pivot. And so I think of a business plan now, and I think of all of that stuff as like, this is me starting to understand my market. This is me starting to understand who I'm trying to target with a service that I think they'll buy. But at the end of the day, I might completely misunderstand my audience, my target. I might completely misunderstand the product or the service that I'm trying to provide. And that's okay too. It's a starting place. It's not the guaranteed map to get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, right. Yes. And I think that's a good thing to bring up because, freelancing, starting a business, you do a lot of because you want flexibility. And yet some people go into it completely rigid and they're like, no, but I said I was going to be a blank and that's what I'm going to be. Even if the market's like, I don't want a blank, I want a blank.
Yeah.
I think you can miss out on a lot of really viable opportunities if you're too focused on adhering to the plan that you've established. So it's like, use it as guidelines, use it as your skin in the game, but definitely flexibility and freedom to kind of bounce around as you learn, right? You learn, you adapt, and that's what we do all the way through life. So I think that is true.
Yeah, and we could probably talk about just this one topic for like days on it. Honestly, because between the two of us, we've learned so many hard lessons, I think.
Yeah.
And but really it comes down to, if you hear a no, listen to the no. understand why they said no. Sometimes it's a good thing that they said no, and that's not a job that you want. That's not a sale that you want to get, whatever. And then other times and every time I would say it's a learning opportunity for you to understand
Yeah.
your audience better and understand what people are looking for and what they're not looking for. And if you don't listen to that, you're missing a lot of really good learnings and inspiration. Even if you still really want to tackle your original plan and all that,
Uh-huh.
it can give you some insight into how do I get other clients that are like what I'm chasing. Maybe it was that I chose the wrong client to the wrong audience or whatever. So
Mhm.
it's a learning opportunity every single time. Yeses are learning opportunities too. Don't just go
Mhm.
by every yes and be like, I'm the smartest person in the room. I nailed it.
Mhm.
Everybody's going to pay me a bunch of money now. Like, no, that's understand why they bought
Mhm.
you, why they made the decision. So that brings us to our first theme. Our first theme
Yeah.
is know your value. So no matter how long you've been freelancing, understanding their value can be intimidating. It can be difficult. And we were lucky to have a couple of really good experts on this, and Jamie Brindle and Nicole Guernsey, who talked about some of the key ways to understand your value and how to get other people to understand your value. So before we get rolling here, Jamie is one of the most prominent voices in the freelance space. If you're on Instagram, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on TikTok and you look for freelancer, Jamie is going to pop up really high up on that list. And he reminded us to get out of our own ways and not to be limited by small expectations of how successful we can be. So we're going to roll that clip now from Jamie.
If I want to double my income this year, I don't have to ask you for permission. And that was my answer. And I was like, I'll leave it at that, And that's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, is that once you get over the kind of initial challenges, the inaugural challenges of building something on your own, then it really is a game. And it really is about, okay, what happens when I pull this lever?
Mhm.
And you let the data be your guide. And there have been plenty of years where we've doubled our annual revenue, the year after. There's one year where we tripled it. Like it's about what you do with the data that you're acquiring as you go.
All right. So we're
Yeah.
back from Jamie. What did we think about his idea here? Because I love this concept of
Yeah.
you have the freedom to double your income without asking permission. I think that's just a great
Yeah.
way to look at it.
It's awesome because I think it's a lot of times like what causes people to not freelance is they're afraid that they will not make money. And the truth can actually be the opposite. And I think for Jamie, he's been doing this long enough to where he's navigated the ups and downs like we've talked about. But I love his approach of that it's really a game that you control all the pieces of. And that's how I feel about it. It's like you pull this lever, maybe we want to do this. Pull this lever, nope, that's not viable. Pull this lever, surprise, surprise, it's actually really awesome. We can shift our whole business that direction. And so I love his like optimistic, gamified approach to building a business because I think that's that freedom and flexibility of like adapt and change and then rewrite it that we were talking about. It's like you really could double your income. You could try something new and triple it. And we have the pieces of the whole puzzle for us when we're building our own business. And I think that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I like the idea that one of the reasons you go into business for yourself is you don't want to have to ask permission to do everything all the time, like every day.
Mhm.
But being reminded of that by somebody like Jamie, say like, no, increasing my income or changing my business or doing anything that I want to do, that's up to me. That's very empowering to say that's mine to own. I can change it anytime I want. And you can't forget that. Just don't get stuck in the rut. I think it's
Yeah.
also so easy to fall into the rut and just be like, well, all I really do is this one thing. I'm just a presentation designer. That's what people pay me to do. I just design PowerPoint decks all day long and I'm never going to get out of this rut. How do I get out of the rut? How do I get people to stop paying me by the hour to do this one thing? Like you can adjust that. You can reframe yourself and your business. You can reframe your resume and you can start to pitch yourself in a different way. And I think that's sort of a wonderful reminder.
It kind of goes into what we're talking about with Nicole, but I think the beauty of it is like living life / doing work on your terms. It's like, this is what you want to do. This is the life you want to create and the work you want to do. And I think that's the freedom that, Jamie was sharing. So one of the most powerful things about self-employment is the ability to deliver value on our own terms. So we talked to financial advisor, Nicole Guernsey, and she gave us a pep talk about, what it means to really sell yourself as a freelancer. She talked a lot about authenticity, about being really honest and true. And, we're going to share her clip here in a second. I thought what I really liked about what she shared was a lot of times especially when we start out, we're kind of playing the role of self-employed business person, as opposed to being true to ourselves. And for me, it's like throwing in the y'alls and the heys and, and that kind of stuff. And that is true to who you are. And I think as soon as we can let go of trying to be something, trying to be the perfect business person or trying to be overly professional, it never really works out if we're trying to play a role long term. And I think Nicole talks a lot about that in a really great way about being authentic. So let's run that clip.
People buy the person, not the product. They buy the personality fit, the skills, the value of the interaction. And that's why, I think people really like me as a financial advisor now, because my tagline is, I'm not your father's financial advisor. I am 100% authentically myself all the time. Cuss words, tattoos, all of it. And I think people really like that because they know that I am there and they could see me outside of work and I would be the same person. And I just really feel like authenticity and learning to identify what people really care about was the biggest thing in marketing that helped me translate careers, but also helped me be successful in freelancing.
All right. So we're back from that. And yeah, I want to 100% reiterate this. You have to be yourself. Like, I love that she says, you're hiring me, tattoos and all. I'm going to cuss. I'm going to be me when you hire me. And you don't think of a financial advisor in that respect. You think of them as kind of buttoned up, and very almost like a banker or whatever, that wear a suit to work. And they hand you business cards every time you meet them out in the world. They're like, and here's a business card. So it feels like a very businessy oriented sort of thing. And I love that when she works with people, she's like, no, you get me. I'm Nicole. I do this my way and we're going to work together. And I totally buy that. I think in order to take advice from somebody, you have to feel comfortable in who they are as a person. And if you feel like they're selling you something all the time, or they're trying to, they're not being true to who they are, you can see that, you can read that. And it's, and it's, to me, it's a big turnoff. Like I wouldn't trust someone with my money, for example, if I didn't trust who they were as a person. So
totally true.
Yeah. Thought that was great. Do you have any other thoughts or insight on that sort of idea of people buy the person, not the product?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's 100% because we do sense when someone's being insincere, and then it usually will come out. If you're trying to be one thing and then trying to play that role, usually the true you will come out at a time that's maybe an uncomfortable. You're frustrated, so you might as well just let them know who you are up front. I also think that people come to the table a lot of times when you're in negotiation, whether it's talking about a rate on a project or a crucial conversation, maybe there's some conflict. People come to the table where they're a little bit guarded. So if you can be your true self and be like, hey, y'all, we're just here to figure this out. Let's, I know we're all going to do good work. I'm confident in that. Then you can immediately disarm the situation versus coming with this very stilted, non-authentic use. I think it is super important to know that you're doing yourself more harm than good by, trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also comes back to something that both Jamie and Nicole talked about, which is knowing your worth. Understanding who you are and what value you bring to the table so that you can put that into dollar figures. One of the things that Jamie talks about is that it's not an hourly rate that you're buying. What you're actually trying to sell to a client is they have a problem, and that problem is worth a certain amount of money to them in order for you to solve it.
Right.
You have to find out how much money that problem is worth to them to solve. It isn't about I get paid this amount per hour or this amount as a flat rate or whatever. It's a question of every single client, what is that worth to you? And if you frame it as this problem is worth $100,000 and you're going to pay me $10,000 to solve it for you, then the client sees that as a $90,000 win. As opposed to if you flip it around the other way, which is you're going to pay me $10,000 to do some work for you over the next 4 months. Okay, that's an expense now. It's the difference in looking at it as a liability and an expense. You're going to pay me $10,000 to do work, and then I'm going to give you an output versus I'm going to save you or make you $90,000.
Yeah.
And I think just framing things that way and talking about things that way, using your authentic self to do that, those are some really wonderful ways that we can think about how we set ourselves up for success when we're selling and understanding our value.
Yeah. Well, I think, and this takes us into the next theme, having confidence that you are delivering something that's valuable and viable. And I think a lot of times when people start freelancing, they're like, I've only been doing this for a year or 6 months. It's like, you've been asking for work this way for 6 months to a year, but you've actually been doing the task and the job that you've been doing over the course of the last 15 to 20 years. And so I think one of the things the next team was talking about putting yourself out there is I think we have to really figure out where our confidence is and what we're delivering. And that gives us the opportunity to speak authentically. It gives us the confidence to also put ourselves in situations that might be a little uncomfortable because we know we have the confidence to speak into that with our experience. And so I think, it all comes, both of those themes all kind of come back to the confidence we feel in the product that we're delivering.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we think about putting ourselves out there, so much of what we do is digital communication now. And so much of the work that we do is in our own homes, away from other people. A lot of people are struggling with that more than ever. They're struggling to make new connections, to give memorable presentations. Fortunately, we've had some really good people here, Terry Vaughn and Margaret McNabb, to help us understand how to put ourselves out there, how to network better, how to present ourselves better as people. It was fascinating to learn and listen to them from their perspectives, how they do that themselves and learn. So let's listen to the clip from Terry right now about avoiding the poker face.
If you're a closed book, if you're someone that doesn't give away very much from what's shown on your face, you might need to begin to animate a little more, try to give a little bit more of yourself, and you'll need to implement whatever changes, depending on you and your baseline, slowly and over time. Because if you go whole hog from the very beginning, you go from someone with a poker face to suddenly rah-rah cheerleader level enthusiasm, people are going to be like, the guy or the girl, they're on crack. I don't know what they're taking, but it's gone completely the opposite way. The pendulum has swung. So you want to implement them sort of over time, implement the changes, but practice is a great way of doing that. You can video record yourself on a Zoom without anyone else being there, present your information, and then honestly assess.
Okay, we're back from that clip from Terry. What do you think about Terry's perspective here? I mean, of course, he's going to ask us to video record ourselves and then painfully watch it back.
I would just the idea of fix your face, Maury. Came up after watching that clip again. We've talked to Terry several times. We know Terry. We love to have conversations with Terry, but what I think I always take away from him is that you got to practice. If you're not naturally, putting off all these vibes, if you're very stoic, we talked a lot about, I think in this episode, how when COVID happened and everybody went virtual, how it was really hard for people to, show any kind of personality on Zoom calls and how that's gotten better over time. But some people are more naturally inclined to talk. You and I live in the virtual world, so it's pretty normal for us. But, I like how Terry talks about how it's really something you need to practice. And so putting it on video and getting feedback if you can, and how you use your hands and how you interact in the space, it all takes practice. And I think that's always a big takeaway from him on a lot of the topics he shares is you've got to practice it and make it part of your everyday so that it becomes natural.
It does. Yeah. It's a slow process, and also not to try to change it all at once and freak out the people that you. I think that was kind of funny too. You can't just go from 0 to 100 in a day.
Yeah.
Just implementing little things. And this is a theme we hear over and over again from people. It's little small changes on a daily or weekly basis as opposed to big giant changes. Those incremental changes, even in things like, getting rid of your RBF and getting more into a slightly more pleasant expression, that's a process. And it does require you to maybe watch back some of your conference calls where you've recorded a video or something like that, so you can actually see, am I responding to someone in a face, in a way, or am I listening to them? And does my listening face look angry? Maybe I can just relax that and try to be a little more neutral. My listening face, I scrunch my eyebrows in, and it can make it look like I'm mad at you, but I'm not. I'm thinking. And it's my prefrontal cortex is activating so hard that,
all this time, the last 11 years, John, I thought you were angry at me this whole time.
I'm trying to focus in so intently that I look mad all the time. I'm totally aware of it. I'm trying not to, raise my eyebrows a little bit more often. I always have Bozo the Clown in my head from that. He had those big jaw eyebrows. Yeah. So then that actually brings us to another thing. You could try these changes or adjustments to your face on strangers who don't know you. That's one way to do it. And then if you don't know those strangers, no big deal. They're moving on, and then it just happens again. So if you go to the grocery store, you could try to practice it on the person checking you out at the register or something like that. But that brings us to Margaret McNabb, who is going to talk to us in this clip about embracing the unknown and the fact that she's never really met a stranger before. So let's listen to that.
I love a stranger personally. I think they're just full of, exciting potential and surprises, And you never know like what the benefit might be. It might not be that this is the person that makes it the end all be all introduction. It could be that moment that you have with them, you learn something that you take with you always, and you never see that person again.
All right, and we're back, and I can actually verify for a fact that Margaret has never really met a stranger, and that she sees them all as opportunities, because the way that I met Margaret was she walked into my art gallery, and within about 5 minutes, I felt like I'd known her forever. She just has this way of just initiating conversation and then making you feel really, really comfortable. And yeah, you can learn new things from people. You can learn new connections. Margaret has been one of those steady friends that I've had now for years and years and years, just for the fact that she was open to initiating a conversation with me.
Yeah, I think with Margaret, what she shares about, and I agree, like whenever I feel like when she kind of goes into a room full of strangers, she's just like, these people are people that I need to know or I need to connect.
Yeah.
Or maybe both.
Yeah.
And it's, she has such authenticity in how she approaches conversation, which goes back to what we talked about before. She's very disarming. She's relaxed. She's silly. She's not afraid to laugh at herself. And I think when you approach strangers, a lot of times you feel judged before you even approach them a lot of times. And I think if you walk into a conversation knowing I have value to add this conversation and I'm going to help this person, you have that genuine feel, then it can disarm any of that that fear of like, oh my gosh, they're going to judge me. They're not going to like me. Because that's what shuts us down from talking to people. And I think that authenticity that Margaret talks about and that she also absolutely exudes everywhere she goes is what makes her so great in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think not looking at it from the perspective of what can I get from this person or from this interaction, but if you flip it the other way and say, what can I do to provide or what can I do to help when I meet this person, that also can set you at ease a little bit too. It's not a transactional thing here. It's really just about you get to meet somebody, and if you can help to connect them to somebody else or just learn something from them or have a great conversation where you just talk about your favorite places to go get coffee, like any of that is a win, right?
Yeah.
Big or small. So when you're at a networking event, just treat it as like, I'm making new friends today and go about it that way. But certainly you don't have to put on airs. You don't have to be someone you're not. You just have to smile, be kind, reach your hand out, shake somebody's hand, and just start talking about literally anything. And pretty soon you'll be best buds. That is definitely good advice from Margaret. So our last theme for today is to own your dream. It feels a bit cliche to talk about dreams, quote unquote, in a business context, but we learned a lot last season about what it means to actively pursue your passions and to build something with intention. We had a great discussion with Chris Light on the work that goes into turning business dreams into business realities. And so let's hear from Chris really quick about that.
It was really at that moment that I decided, I was like, if I'm going to live that life, I'm going to have to build it myself, and I'm going to have to construct it bolt by bolt and not be a passenger in my life, but a driver in my life. That was really the key switch for me. And so when you start asking, like, how does starting to pursue your drive, your desires, your call, whatever, and how does that impact your relationship with work? You start to realize, do you want to be the driver or do you want to be a passenger?
All right, Mari, what do you think of that one?
I love that. I love that quote from Chris. And Chris is just like, he just exudes, I forget what we said about him, but he's like his optimism just flows out of him. His optimism for people, for what he's going to do, for what the day is going to bring. Like he just approaches the world with like this optimistic excitement to learn and discover. And it just, every time I see him, I don't care if I bump into him at a coffee shop or wherever, he still has that same energy. And I just love that about him. I think for this quote, I think it's 100% spot on. And we talk a lot about this with, starting a business, and we come out of college, we get into our working life. We basically, our parents just kind of shove us into the driver's seat and throw us the keys. They're like, go figure it out. And a lot of us, what we do is we are so used to being, carried along and helped. And so a lot of times we get into a full-time job and that starts to support us and we start to get our feet under ourselves and we understand what we want to do. But then at some point, if we want to do something our own way, if we want to be write our own rules, make our own decisions, then we have to get back in the driver's seat and we have to decide what we're going to do. And so I love how Chris put that, because it's not always the easiest way to go through life is by being the driver of everything. but you do have a lot more control over where you're going and when you're slowing down and when you're speeding up. And so I thought his perspective on this was really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another way to look at that is you can see life in two different ways. Life either happens to you or you take control of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in those perspectives, it's happening to me. I'm a victim. These things are coming around me. I can't stop them. If you feel that it's happening to you, you can easily flip that around. Not easily, but through some time and patience and work, you can flip that around to say, why are these things happening? What can I do to control these situations or to manage them better? Maybe some of them are out of my control. Maybe it's an act of God. Maybe there's a flood. Maybe there's, any of those things. I can't control what happens in that scenario, but I can control my response to it. And this is something that, we teach on the tennis court all the time is that, I can't control what my opponent does on the other side of the net, but I can control how I respond. And so this understanding of I still am the driver in that situation. I still have a level of control. It's a level of control to the response of what's going on. Sometimes I can control the outcome if it's an easy thing, but a lot of times we have to understand we can't, what we can control, what we can't control. And then we manage our response to that accordingly. That it does allow us to be that driver. It does allow us to continue to move forward. And if we take his driver metaphor even farther, you can either put the car in drive or you can put it in reverse, or you can sit and park and do nothing.
Yeah. They're all options.
They are all options. And so, pop that thing into drive and then drive at the pace that is comfortable or appropriate for you and for the situation.
Yeah.
Awesome. So lightning round. What is the one thing that you hope to learn in season 2?
Well, I think for season 2, I think it'll be an interesting opportunity to connect to some of the core things that the questions, concerns that come up around starting a business, running a business, all the different pieces of it, both from a tactical work side of things, but then also just an emotional and mental side of things. I think it'll be fun to see what things come up as we, talk to some of these new guests. What about you?
Yeah, I'm interested in providing a little bit more of the practical side of things. I love to talk in theory and I love to talk about these big ideas. And that's probably my favorite thing in the world to do is to just sit and pontificate on stuff. Right. But the other side of that is at some point, you've got to come down and make an action plan and a to-do list and really start to put one foot in front of the other, get this thing going. And so I'm interested in getting some more of that practical advice out to people. I realize a lot of times that when you and I talk, we start from the perspective of all of the knowledge and information that we've already gathered over the course of years of uncompany and freelancing on our own and businesses on our own and all of that sort of thing. And so maybe backing that down to some of the basics will allow us to revisit some of that for ourselves too and go oh yeah, I forgot about that. So that part will be fun. Sometimes it's good to go back and really think about what are the key most important takeaways that I learned in different times too and be able to share with other people. Next question here. If you could pick anybody at all to sponsor the podcast, who would be our dream sponsor? Man, I think it's something that would be practical, that would be useful for small businesses. I'm going to say, any type of productivity tool that is going to make life easier for freelancers. So, for instance, simple project management software idea, Asana, Trello, somebody like that. Tie that to LastPass or 1Password or another company that helps make some practical guidance. And then maybe some sort of legal service to help people. I would love to put together, and this is maybe something that we're going to do. We've talked about this for a while, put together a package for small business freelancers of here are the tools that we use, that we love, that we think are great, and that maybe you should consider using or putting into your workflow.
Yeah.
All the time using different tools and trying different things out and testing things. And some things work really well for us and some things don't. And so, yeah, I think maybe we can tackle that over the next year too, is to help provide a little bit of a toolbox or some approved by uncompany sort of tool. So you don't waste your time.
Vendor list.
Some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next lightning round here. What's one piece of advice we got from last year that has stuck with you?
There's so many of them. This is so hard because all of these little nuggets were just so awesome. With Terry, I think I always come back to Terry and his idea of paying attention because to me that is a universal call. Pay attention to how you're moving throughout the day, how you're moving in your life, the decisions you're making, what you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to. Pay attention to your health, pay attention to the people around you that you really care about, pay attention to your priorities. So for me, it's like, I think that concept from him about, paying attention, which he's talking about personal safety and stuff, but I think I pull that out to be a lot of different things. I think one of the things Brian Meyer was like, just how about showing up? Like, I'm a big proponent of like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to just, I'm going to say maybe not all the time, but 99% of the time I'm in it 100%. Like we don't do the whole like, I'm going to try to do this. It's like, no, I'm going to do it. And I'm either going to fail at it or I'm going to be successful at it or I'm going to learn something from it. So I think those two things are probably pretty big takeaways that I still I think about and have on a Post-it note in my office.
Yeah. That's the old Yoda. There is no try, right?
Yes.
There is no try.
So deep. He knew.
You gotta, I think if we all just, listen to Yoda, we'd be smarter and better, right? Like, boy, that shows exactly my age and my generation when I think, but there's so many people out there that definitely hear that when they hear the thing about trying, for sure. First thing that pops into my head. For me, I think I would echo what you say about the showing up part and the paying attention part. I really love this idea of authenticity and owning you as who you are in your business itself. I think whether it's Nicole talking about it or many of our other people that we've interviewed, this advocating for yourself, but advocating for yourself from a place that feels true to you and to who you are. And so that could be anything from asking for a certain amount of money when you're pitching a job, all the way to introducing yourself to new people and connecting with those people, being your authentic self as you do that and saying like, this is who I am. I'm out here and I'm being real and upfront with you about my skills, my abilities, sometimes my weaknesses, and what I want to get out of this situation. Like those types of things are totally fine and acceptable. I think sometimes we're just a little shy to advocate for ourselves and to even to ask for what it is that we need or want. And it's perfectly okay to hear no. That's another one that I would say, if you listen to, for example, Chris Lyth, Chris is a great salesperson. I mean, I'd buy anything that guy is selling, honestly, because of the way that he approaches it from his authentic, perspective.
I think with Chris too, it's like going back to your saying, it's like with no, and I always tell my kids this too. It's like, nobody's going to die from a no. If I ask you a question and it's no, like don't be afraid to ask a question and for someone to say, I'm sorry, but no, like you're not going to, keel over right there. Just gonna be like, okay, move on. But I was like, I feel like that came from Steve Jobs, like the idea of asking. Make sure you're asking. Don't be afraid to ask for stuff because a lot of times the answer is going to be yes, and you're going to be like, oh, hot damn, that worked out for me, Yeah. But if you never ask, then you don't get it, And so I think that's, Chris is obviously a great salesman, and so he is not immune to no, but he is desensitized to no because he's probably gotten a ton of no's in his life.
Absolutely. It is so easy to get emotional about hearing no and to get sad or get upset or get angry. You hear no a million times. When you're a salesperson, when you're selling something, when you're selling yourself, it feels very personal. You feel like you're getting rejected. And it's not always that you as an individual are getting rejected. It might be the wrong time or the wrong place, or there could be a million other reasons that you have no control over. So understand that no is just an opportunity for you to spend your time doing something else that's more productive. For sure. Awesome. Well, that is all for today and for this first season of Command Q. Yeah. So we've knocked out over 40 something episodes at this point. And we're really excited to sort of like regroup and get things going with a tighter focus for the next season. So thanks for taking some time to look back with us, and we can't wait to see you when we start that new second season. So while we're honing in on the topics that we feel like are going to help our freelancers, we will be back in touch with you in maybe a couple of weeks. It's probably going to be the middle or end of February before we get that next episode out. But until then, this is John.
And this is Murray.
And we're reminding you that quitters can win and winners can quit. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the guest's own and do not necessarily represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Command Q or Uncompany.